Texas Mises Caucus, what's up? Well, welcome to the event. Thank you guys for turning out. It means the world to me. It's incredible to see. There's another event across the street if you didn't know. And I'm pretty sure we're dwarfing them right now. So this is mind-blowing to me. Welcome to the LP Mises Caucus Texas event, AKA the Eric July, Scott Horton, Dave Smith, and who the fuck is that guy show. Anyways, I'm Clint Russell. I am the host of Liberty Lockdown. Thank you. And my story's kind of weird. So if you already know it, forgive me for boring you. I'll be quick. My dad found libertarianism in the 1970s, and I was born in the 80s. So I am one of the rare second-gen libertarians, where I was actually raised by my mom, for the most part, and my stepdad, but I would spend 1 weekend a month with my biological dad. And he would take me on these four-hour car rides from San Diego to Ridgecrest, California, which is where he ran this nightclub. And on these incredibly autistic car rides, he would tell me about the time value of money when I was 5 years old. Are you starting to get the picture as to why I'm so strange? So he talked about the foundational principles of liberty, what the founding fathers believed in, why it was so hard fought, why it was so fleeting, and why it meant more than anything. I was essentially indoctrinated into kind of a religious fervor around liberty. And I know a lot of people, they come to libertarianism as they get older. I had it built into me very young. So I basically, this is just a complete projection of my childhood into the future. But I didn't actually set out to do any of this. So for those that aren't familiar with any of my backstory, I was a private money mortgage lender, entrepreneur, brokered a couple $100 million, was doing great financially, really enjoying my life, had no intention of being involved with the Libertarian Party, was just wishing them well and voting for them when they ran a candidate that I liked. That's it. And I didn't want to be involved, to be perfectly blunt. I was most interested in just benefiting my own life, kind of the agorist mentality of like looking after my loved ones and growing my own foundation of economic freedom. And then the lockdowns happen. And I'm sure many of you feel the way I did, is that I was radicalized tremendously in that moment. And the reason I got engaged is because the Libertarian Party was not delivering what I felt was necessary in that moment, the most important moment, when literally no one was defending liberty. I relied on the Libertarian Party to do that for me in that moment, and they didn't. So instead of being a victim about it and pretending as if, I'm powerless to change anything, I started to speak out. A lot of people did. And in 2 years, I went from being an anonymous fat chick in a bikini on Twitter to going public and letting people know who I was, and fortunately had these legends in front of me that kind of paved the way and helped lift me up, and that's my story. So I know a lot of people have also felt increasingly radicalized, and I use that word intentionally because I've been radicalized. So I hope that's okay. I hope it's permissible that we're allowed to talk as if we've been radicalized, because our liberty has been stripped from us almost entirely for 2 years. If you aren't fucking radicalized, what are you paying attention to? So if they think that they can do this to us and that we're just going to stand by and allow it to happen, they have another thing coming. And as far as I'm concerned, the Libertarian Party will be the vehicle for that message to push back. And the Mises Caucus is the front line of that defense. So the main gist of my belief system over the past 2 years has been that the reason the world has fallen apart is because courageous, principled people kind of didn't stand up. We didn't speak out. We allowed people like Fauci and other, technocratic elites to dictate what the policy will be in a crisis. And people that actually have principles that value human liberty were cowed by the masses that were too afraid to identify the actual danger that sat atop the immediate danger, which was COVID. And I think that that's the main thing I want to imbue in you guys, is that it's really vital that if we're going to be kind of the vanguard of liberty, and even we aren't good enough to speak out when the crisis strikes, when no one has any real clue as to the danger that we're facing, well, then no one's going to do it, obviously. It's so politically challenging to have that courage to do that in that moment when you don't know. We didn't know. 2 years ago, I didn't know exactly the viral load and transmissibility of COVID. I just, from principle, I stood up immediately and I said, you cannot take my rights away. You can't do it. Unfortunately, they did, though. Despite the fact that I was saying it, they still did. And this is why I'm becoming politically engaged, is because having my own personal stance and outlook is not necessarily adequate. By the way, am I too close to the mic? Am I like popping? Is all right? All right, cool. So from the Republican to the Democrat side, there is no likely defense or prosecution that's going to come for the people that abused us over the past 2 years. Let's be honest. They sat alongside. Many of them propagated the same nonsensical messages as, you know, the worst of the worst. Trump allowed it to happen, whether he was involved in the orchestrating of it or not. As far as I'm concerned, that he failed in that opportunity, and he's probably going to run again. Let's be honest. So, do you want to be represented by that? Someone who allowed you to be locked in your house for over a year? Like, no, thank you. I don't have any interest in seeing you again, ever. To be honest, he was better than most presidents in my lifetime, but he still allowed me to be locked in my fucking house. So, bye bye. I don't want to see you ever again. This, I say it with some levity, but let's be honest. There's a 22-point IQ drop on average for toddlers because of masking. That's serious. That's not okay. That's almost like war crime level stuff, what we've done to our kids over the past 2 years. You had a 30% rise in drug overdoses, a 50% rise in suicidal ideation in kids, in children. If your blood doesn't boil hearing these statistics, I don't know what it'll take. I mean, it's incredible what we allowed to happen. And we allowed it. I always look at every aspect of my life as if I am the dictator of my life. I will be no man's victim. So I blame myself. And I take that weight on every day. And maybe it's too much to do. Maybe that's why I come across as so unbelievably radicalized, but whatever. I look at every injustice in the world, and I carry some of that with me. And when it happens in my own backyard to people that I know, to their children, well, I get activated. So I want to encourage everybody that's here to speak out while we still can. Obviously, the suppression of speech online, you've seen it from COVID, where if you were to talk about early treatment, you had people like Dr. McCullough, Dr. Pierre Corey. Many of these people courageously spoke out, a handful of them. And what did they get in return? They got their licenses pursued, many of them. Or they were banned from Twitter or YouTube. It's like, and now we're having that exact same mentality carried forward with any sort of dissent when it comes to the potential for World War III. That's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. And I just think that if we're going to have any chance of a viable anti-war movement, we have to be able to speak and be the dissenters when no one else is willing. So I think that the lessons that we learned from the past 2 years is that if we aren't willing to speak out when it matters most, no one will. And if World War III is the potential risk coming down the pipe, well, then we better be willing to speak out, because you will not have another chance. I know it sounds, I'm taking the room in a really dark place, and I apologize, but that's the truth. It's the truth. Nuclear war is no joke. War with a nuclear Russia is no joke. And we have politicians that stand on Capitol Hill today talking very flippantly about no-fly zones. We all know what a no-fly zone means. It means American weaponry and American troops shooting down Russian troops. Where does that go? Do Do you think Putin's just going to be like, I get it, it's cool? No, he's not. So I just want to encourage you guys to continue to stay activated. Obviously, you already are. You're here. So I could probably stop preaching to the choir. But I just wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. It has been the thrill of my life. I honestly believe that the Ron Paul revolution, which inspired me so much in the mid-2000s to believe that there was a potential home for libertarianism, I get to be kind of a voice in the next version of it. How cool is that? How cool is that? It's the honor of my life, and I don't say that lightly. It is the honor of my life to be able to do this with you guys. And Murray Rothbard talked in For New Liberty about how the 1970s were the most fertile ground for the libertarian revolution. Murray, look at us now. We have very fertile ground. And it's funny because he talked a lot about the disillusion in the political establishment in the 1970s. Boy, disillusion, that's the name of the game right now. He talked about inflation. Boy, we're catching up with you. And then obviously the anti-war sentiment from Vietnam versus our war on terror, Afghanistan, Iraq. Scott Horton will tell you about the rest of them. I feel like this is the second best time, and I think it's actually, no disrespect to Murray Rothbard, I think he was wrong. There's no way he could have known. There's no way he could have known how crazy shit was going to get. But this is the most fertile time. This is our opportunity to take that torch of liberty that Ron Paul lit and Murray Rothbard lit all those years ago, that exists within me today, that exists within everyone in this room today, that will not be extinguished as long as we're breathing. That's incredible. I'm honored to be a part of this room. Thank you, guys.